G'day everyone, it's Lyndon here from My Modded Mini. Today we're going to do a firmware update on my Alpine head unit, and while I've got the dash apart, I'm going to put some sound editing in behind it. Let's go. I always start with just using the toolkit that I keep in the back of the Mini, because that way if I know that anything happens on the road, I've got all the tools on me in the car, and I don't have to wait for somebody else for imperial sockets or wrenches or anything like that, spanners and stuff. So here I'm just getting the right size socket, because the gloss pod that sits around the digital dash and the head unit is only held on by one screw. So it's just undoing that one there. And then you take the fascia off, and then the whole gloss pod just comes off by itself. You tip it up and around. Once you've got that off, then I just had a bit of a look at the head unit itself, because there's a bit of a rattle in here, and that's the one that I'll fix later, or attempt to fix later. And I don't know if it's caused by just that little bit of movement there and the top of the head unit rubbing on the top of the gloss pod. Underneath here, I was lucky enough, and I remember it now, so that's the pedal box for the Mini, and you can see the USB port just sticking out there from the back of the head unit, and that was so that I can do any updates that I needed to later. It's the one that's hardwired into the back of the head unit. And here I've just put a USB drive in there, just following the instructions on the Alpine website. Just says download the update. It's about 1 gig, so it's actually fairly big. Unpack it into the root directory of the thumb drive, and then just plug the thumb drive into that particular USB port, not the grey one. And so this is for a ILX 507 head unit. Once you've got it all turned on and going, just looking for the right settings in here. It wasn't in that one, so I've got to go across to the system, down to about, and then it has the actual firmware on there. The first time I tried it, it said it wouldn't work, but I don't know if it's because I had my phone connected to my camera. So it tries to do the update here, or it tries to read the update, can't find it, and it asks me to change the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi settings on my phone, so I did that. I'm just shutting down the dash on the far right as well there, because it uses about 2.5 amps, so you don't want it just sitting there while your doors open and you're doing this sort of stuff. So then it's looking for the update on the thumb drive. This one fails, and then the next one it shows I'm going from version 4 to version 5. Clicking on the update here, so it took a fair while to go through this, and it starts a lot slower and then it sort of kicks along at the end. I've got the car plugged into a battery charger on the back as well, because I do only have a small battery in the car. Not that I'm worried about it going flat after this, but it's more that I don't want the voltage to drop while it's doing the update, and because we've all heard about electronic gear, that when you're flashing something and doing firmware updates, then it bricks the actual device itself. So this is, I turned the camera off for a little bit, turned it back on again, and this is it just kicking along now. You do the system reboot, and then there's a part in the Alpine manual that it tells you to reinitialize the system. I'm not sure whether or not it's just a clean slate theory, but it asks you to reinitialize, which means then you have to connect it to your phone and all that sort of stuff again. Not too hard in today's electronic gear. So I went through this, reinitialized, connected my phone again because it connects through Wi-Fi, so I've got Android Auto through wireless, and then everything worked as it was meant to. So what I think is happening is that this bit of aluminium here can just flex a little bit, because the bracket here is connected to this aluminium, and I think it just flexes a little bit, which lets this move up and down. It's a first world problem, but I'm going to dig in and try and put a bit of sound deadening behind it, add a little bit of weight to it. This might be the easiest way to get in there, I think. So that's with the dash out. So I was saying it's essentially a Raspberry Pi by PowerTune Digital. Sits in there like that. It's got the GPS, is a little brass connection. Power, ground, and the blue and white is a CAN bus, which you would find in any pretty much modern car. You'll have a CAN bus, which takes all of the signals from the computer in the car and then sends it into ones and zeros, and the computer works it out what it means and it displays it on the dash. So that's what I was saying, is that's the GPS connector, that's the CAN bus, which is just 4 wires, positive, negative, and then the 2 signal wires are the blue and the white twisted pair. That all goes in behind here, and then just under this piece of foam here is the actual box where all of the signals, so indicators, high beam, low beam, temperature sensors, oil pressure sensors, everything goes into this box, and then the blue and white comes out of it. And they talk to each other, and yeah, that's what gives you all the signals from the dash. As you can see behind here, I did most of these anywhere where there were wires bunched up. I sort of taped them up, covered them in foam, so that there wasn't any rattles or anything behind the dash, and I've got things labelled behind here as well, because it sort of comes through in big bunches when I did it. I'm just going to see how hard it is to get the rest of this out, because I might be able to get enough access if I just take these screws out, pull the head unit forward, and then I'll be able to get in behind it. And the idea, I just want to put a bit of sound deadening, or sort of essentially just weight on behind here, behind where these switches are, and then over on this panel here, and that might stop some of that from moving. When it's only at a certain rev, and you can't hear it while you're driving along, but you can hear it at the sensor lights and that sort of stuff. So that's what I want to do. I'll see if I can just cut a piece across there and try and slide it down in behind here without having to take everything out. If I can do that, that'll be good. If I can't, I'll just have to take it out. So I'll do a bit of a test fit. It looks all right, and be about the right sort of size there. All this stuff is, you just peel this off, and this here is a sticky surface, just like a butyl rubber type thing. The good thing with this versus when I used to do car audio competitions and everything and use the bitumen stuff is it used to stink and it never dries properly. So yeah, this one's really good. I found it to be really good to deal with, and you can see I've already used it all in behind here, so under the floors, on the firewall, everywhere. I've got a kit today which is way too big for what I need, but I'll be able to use it for the doors later on when I've got the time to take the skins off again and do behind them. I'm just thinking it might be easier to actually take these, or this speaker out here in particular, and then I can slide the sound deadener along from that, because that there is a yeah, much bigger hole than what that is. So I might be able to get it in a bit neater, because I want to be able to peel the protective coating off and sort of slide it in as if you're contacting school books. And then that way it gets a good connection with the aluminium behind it, and should make it nice and sound deadened, or should make it a little bit heavier at least. You can see this stuff here is, it's like a semi sort of liquid rubber, but yeah, it's really sticky, and it's been pretty effective so far, but I don't want it in my carpet. Because I've also got my demister vent in behind here as well, so it sits out a bit further. I might actually have to do this in a couple of pieces. As in cut a piece and put it here, cut another piece and put it here, cut another piece and put it here, rather than trying to feed this whole section in. Which I think is what I'm going to. I've got this section probably about there. Stick it on now, so I'll just push it in behind. There is a nice little roll that you use, and it's pretty handy for when you're doing all the floors and roof and all that sort of stuff. It gets a really good contact patch with it, but I think I'll be able to get it. I'm going to do a little bit underneath the stereo there, but there's not much to do because of the switches that I've got there, but I'm just trying to stop like any resonance, and then I'll just nip these two screws up, and there's two underneath as well. I'll just nip those up, and that's about all I can do with it. And we'll see how it goes. A bit tricky to see, but yeah, just you can see it stuck on the wall just there. More in front of it, but yeah, you can see that bumpy surface in the bottom sort of right. That's yeah, that's what I've just stuck on the inside there. This wooden part here is because when you've got your speakers, yeah, they're not really good if you just screw them straight onto the aluminium. So I just cut out these wooden rings which go all the way around there, and then that gives you something for your speakers to screw into as well. Alright, so these, while I got it out, might as well show you. These are the speakers, CSC 5s. They had pretty good reviews. The good thing that I liked about them is they could handle a little bit of power, and they fit into this section here without having to go to a 6.5. Last time when I had a 6.5 in here, I had to actually build them out so they sat away from the dash to get in between this ridge here and this ridge here. So these ones fit in nice. They're just a simple coax, they're not very axy, and I've been able to run them with an amp and put a bit of power through them, and they haven't had any dramas yet, so they meet the brief. And start putting the head unit back in. So there's two screws that I use for these. One of these is a countersunk, like this, which I use to locate the head unit in its bracket. And then once it's, get it to focus there. Yeah, once that one's in, then you can nip them up. You've got to make sure you use really short ones on these, because otherwise you're going to screw them too far into the actual case of the head unit, and it will not work. It'll let smoke out. Right, so I've got the little countersunk one in there. And then get this one in. You don't want to cross thread these, so you sort of. These are actually machine screws in there, so they've got a thread. So you shouldn't have to force it, and if you do, probably in the wrong spot. Yep. That is good, and then dash goes back in, which is this way, and GPS plug. I like it to finish that way, so I normally just tighten it up. You can do it with a spanner as well, but I found this has never been an issue. Like that, so it sits like that. Exits this way because that's the way that it sits in the dash, which is just nicer. And then this plug only goes in one way. It clicks like that. Push the wires back in the other way, making sure they're sitting on top of the foam. And the dash sits like this. There's a single screw on this side. Same deal, I don't want to thread. Do it backwards first, just to feel the click. Screw it in so I'm not stripping the plastic nuts out all the time. And I just sort of nip that one up a little bit until I get in the car. And let's see where it has to go. Of a big proponent for it doesn't need to be fancy if it doesn't need to. So where this dash, and you can see that there's a gap distance here, so I needed a big washer because this screw goes through like that, and then by big washer ended up just being a heap of bits of ply screwed together. So I put that there, makes this flat, and then that pushes up against the that bit there pushes up against the aluminium on the digital dash part. And then how you put it back together, let's see if I can get this, it sort of sits over the top, so it goes down over like that, and then just drops down, this screw. Alright, so I'll just put a little bit of rubber in there, and then this sits on. It's got two clips at the top and three at the bottom. And that's just the face U trim. So this is all secured. Everything is pretty good now. And all I'll do is give it a clean up and start it and see if it still rattles. Cheers. Alright, I might as well, while I've got it out, go through. This is what I carry around with me for spares in the back of the Mini. So I've just got selections of nuts and bolts, fuses, audio ones of these big ones, spare wheel nuts and that sort of stuff, and a couple of plastic clips in here as well. It's things that are not as easy to get in imperial sizes in Australia. So I carry that along. Toolbox, it goes in first. Next couple of things, I just carry a bit of liquid metal around with me. So that's the one that you just push together as an epoxy, and then you can use it to repair things, and a spare spark plug. And it goes in there as well. Spark plug socket in 1/2 inch drive. And then instead of carrying the screwdrivers around, I carry this kit, and it's just a cheapie, but it's got the Torx bits, security bits, extension, Phillips flat. So I find it pretty handy to have in there, and it fits neatly down on the bottom. And I've also got my feeler gauges, which fit in between like that. So when I put it into the toolbox, that's what it looks like so far. Then in this case here, or this bag I should say, I've got 3/8 drive and 1/4 inch drive, and then I have a 3/8 set and a 1/4 inch set. I've got a couple of these because they work well for driving the screwdriver bits that we just put in there as well. So they've got no dramas with that. And just find the one that I used, this one here. So it's like that, and I've got both of those sets, which they stay in, but they go up on top. So I've got the drive, and the drive, it's just sometimes easier to get into the smaller spaces, so they're in there. Then I've got a uni joint and an extension bar, long extension bar, magnet and mirror, so extendable magnet and mirror. If you can ever get a hold of one of these, is a good dental pick. So these are awesome for getting out seals, cleaning threads. Just trying to get it to focus a bit, but yeah, if you can get a hold of one of these ones, they're awesome and they're really hard to break, so they're good to go. Lock nuts, that's my screwdriver bit, which I put the socket on from the 1/4 drive, and then use the bits themselves, spark plug gap, and then a couple of different tapes, from thread tape through to just electrical tape. Extension bar for 3/8 drive. That's about it in that one. So then that goes in next, because it's the next biggest. I've got a couple of panel tools that are sort of well used, which I just keep in there, and they're handy because when I'm just out and about as well, if other people have got problems, I can help them with their audio stuff, dash and all that sort of thing. In this one here, I've just got a heap, or a little bit I suppose, spare wire, fittings, rubber bungs, hose clamps, just sort of like spare parts, bits and pieces. Again, a few things that are pretty specific to minis that you can't get anywhere else, or harder to get I should say. And this one here, I've just got my spare Deutsch connectors, relays, and a bit of the more specialised electrical stuff that I do, because this is just spares that will get lost as I'm moving around, so I just keep them in the car with me as well. So then this is what it's all looking like so far. And as far as pliers go, I've always got a pair of pointy nose and a set of multi-grips. So I could use those for, I use these as my combo pliers essentially. So I use the multi-grips as a combo plier, and then the pointy nose for exactly as it's stated. Selection of zip ties, always handy. Small shifter, a test light. I've got a multimeter in the car as well, but sometimes the test light, like once you know how to use them, they're just as fast to give quick fault finding. Always carry a Stanley knife on me as well. And then those two sockets that go on the top. And I've got one of these, which I always forget to use, but super handy. So your mini palm ratchets or your hand ratchet, and it fits the 1/4 drive screwdriver bits on it as well. So you can put the bit straight into there, or I can use the socket on that side. Yeah, to do the stuff up that I need to. And then that all zips up. I've always got some texters and a pen in case I need to write anything down. Piece of rubber pad for when I jack the car up, so I'm not scratching underneath it. And this is just a Petzl emergency torch. It's got 10-year button life, or 10-year button batteries in it, so it just stays in the car as well. I have, this is a rechargeable torch, so it's got the bar light and a spot, and it flicks out. It's magnetic on the base, has a hook as well. And the thing that I like the most about it is it's rechargeable, and it's not one of those little micro USB ones or anything. It's just a normal plug, and then that just stays plugged into one of my USB ports in the back of the car, so it's always charged up, and it just sits in one of the courtesy bins in the back. So that's in the car. This fits in the back of the car, which I will show you now. So when I had this as a car audio car, I'll go back so you can see the whole thing. So you've got normal mini battery there, spare wheel normally sits in here, and then I put an extra battery box in here because I had two batteries to power the stereo, and then I had a small tiny battery that laid down flat here as the car starter battery. But the good thing about this, and I left it in there when I just did this build, is that this toolbox fits down in there like that. Got my valve saver fluid in there, always have a rag in there. My jumper leads fit over the top. I've got a piece of vinyl, which is just good for whenever you've got to do anything and you've got to lie down, it's easy to clean. And then out of that, then I've got Imperial spanners. And then I've got this that I made up as well. So it's got my hammer, a bigger shifter, my jack, wheel brace, another piece of rubber, and then this is what I use for the spark plug, because you would have noticed that I don't have a 1/2-inch drive in the kit that we just went through. So this is my 1/2-inch drive that I use for the wheel nuts and everything as well. And the lock key for my nuts on the wheels. So it sits like that sits like that sits over the top there, and then I've got these two pieces of aluminium channel at the back here. Let's take the charger off. I've just been having the battery on charge. I'll try and do this one-handed. So it goes, slots in there, slots in there, push that down, and then that's when I've got just this net. But always keep the car cleaning stuff in there, and always keep a can of brake clean in there, which just sits under the net. And this is when it's handy, because when you are doing spirited driving, all of this stuff doesn't bounce around in the boot and everything everywhere. So that's like that. Boot closes up, and it's good to go. Hey, thanks for watching that. That hopefully fixes the rattle in the dash. I'm going to go through the car audio stuff next time on a video. Like and subscribe, and if you've got any comments, chuck them down below, and I'll get to them as soon as I can. Thanks.